Happy Friday, everyone. I'm Nuria.
And I'm Frank.
And welcome to another episode of ITT Podcast, which stands for In This Together Podcast. Our podcast is our honest take on relationships, love, and marriage, with the aim of sharing our views and experiences for you to take from it whatever you need.
So whether you're single, dating, in a relationship, or happily married, there is something in it for you.
Hi everyone. Today's episode is called Communication is the Key, and we'll be talking about the importance of communication in relationships. As part of our discussion, we will explore how effective communication can enhance the bond between two people and lead to a healthier, happier relationship. We will give our honest opinion on the best ways to communicate and provide some useful tips, as always, to help improve or strengthen your relationship. Okay, Frank, so why does the communication topic matter to you? It's our last episode of the season and it's all about communication. So why are we doing it? Why are we talking about communication?
We're talking about communication because we believe communication is a vital part of a successful relationship.
Yeah, it can really make or break a relationship. And I think it's good for us to discuss the challenges that we've had with communicating in our own relationship. We can also discuss how good communication can help couples to understand each other better. And improve trust and resolve conflicts. So we think it's really, really important. And I think it's something that a lot of couples struggle with, how to communicate, when to communicate, even just remembering to communicate, you know.
That's true.
It's hard, especially when you get in your feelings about stuff in a relationship, to remember to communicate and remember how important it is. But it really is the key.
And it's something that you have to learn when you get into a relationship.
Yeah.
Because you think you know what communication is. Until you get into a relationship, then you know that you don't know what communication is.
Right?
So,
yeah.
It's integral to
Yeah, it's definitely integral to a relationship, and it's just one of those things. I think once you get that right, you're well on your way to a successful marriage. You're on your way to a successful relationship. And obviously our focus is on relationships and some of the struggles we face when it comes to communication, and just to kind of give people a bit of insight and some advice on that. So we're going to do a few stats on it just because it's quite an interesting topic.
And there's quite a lot of information online about communication and the impact of not communicating or good communication in relationships and marriage.
Yeah. So from some internet research we pulled together, there's some statistics regarding the impact of communication on relationships and marriage from across the world. So according to a 2018 survey by Relate, a United Kingdom relationship charity, 83% of couples said that communication was the most important factor for their successful relationship. In 2020, another survey conducted by Relate also found that couples who communicate openly and honestly are more likely to report higher levels of trust and commitment in their relationship. Across the pond, a 2015 study from the University of Missouri in Columbia in the US found that couples who communicated more effectively had a more satisfying relationship overall. And according to a survey conducted by the National Marriage Project, which is based in the US, couples who talk about important matters such as finances, parenting, and all other things that they need to discuss in their relationship are more likely to enjoy a satisfying and stable marriage. The same thing is echoed in a 2017 survey of married couples in India, where communication was found to be the most important factor for relationships satisfaction. The same thing was found in a 2018 survey conducted in Australia that found that couples who communicated more had greater relationship satisfaction. And finally, a study conducted by the European Journal of Social Psychology found that communication, again, is the most important predictor of marital satisfaction and stability across Europe. So just from that, you can see that all of these studies, most of the success in relationships seems to really lean on communication. And we've kind of been saying throughout the podcast, we touch on communication a lot.
Yeah,
in loads of different ways.
Like being open.
Yep. open, honest,
and being open about, being honest.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. It's all communication.
It's all communication, even down to the episode we did about vulnerability.
Yes. Yes.
Vulnerability has to be communicated. So the communication is almost the underlying baseline for any relationship to work. Even things like standards and expectation and boundaries and stuff like that. None of that is going to matter if you can't communicate it to your partner and you can't make sure that there's a understanding.
Yeah, that's true. I guess everything is to do with communicating. That's what I said earlier on about it's a skill that you have to develop in a relationship. You don't know. You think you know how to communicate. Then you get into a relationship, then you have to learn how to communicate properly.
Yeah. So I guess the best way for us to kind of address communication is to look at our relationship and give you some kind of background on our relationship and how we've addressed communication in the past. So, the first thing we can talk about is what were our biggest communication challenges in our marriage?
Yeah.
Because we had some really big communication challenges in our marriage early on. And we definitely had to overcome them in order to continue going forward and to have a marriage that we consider to be successful now. So do you want to touch on what our biggest communication challenges were in our marriage?
Oh, it's straightforward. We did not know how to communicate to each other. You were pretty good at expressing yourself and messages across to me and whatnot, but I don't think I was good at doing that.
Yeah.
Like I said before, I thought I knew what communication was until...
What did you think it was? And then what did you find out
I thought it was just a case of two people conversating. If there are issues, you sit down and you talk about the issues. But communication, some of it or a lot of it is listening as well. When you're communicating, you have to be a good listener. That's part of communicating. So that part of it, I did not understand that bit of it. So I struggled quite a lot. It was a case of, you were trying to get your point across sometimes. I was trying to do exactly the same thing. So I think there was a lot of clash at the beginning of our relationship.
Yeah. And I was always a good communicator in articulating my point, but I wasn't always a good communicator in knowing how to convey a message to Frank. In the beginning, Frank used to say I was really kind of not forceful, but used to say I was very, when I was trying to get my point across, I was really condescending, which I can still be sometimes without meaning to be.
Yeah.
So I will be great at explaining my side of things, but my whole tone is really authoritative, and that can be hard for a man if it's too much like an ultimatum, too headstrong, just sounding a bit aggressive. And that's because, I grew up around a lot of men in my family. Grew up around a lot of uncles, cousins, loads of men in my family, especially, my dad's side. And I grew up on my dad's side. And so I was often used to hearing things communicated in a very authoritative way. And I was used to hearing people speak in such a way where they were kind of imposing as well, I guess, with them being typical African men.
True.
So my example of communication in conflict was very much about, this is what I'm saying, this is how it has to be.
And that's it.
Yeah. And that's not how you want to communicate in a marriage. That's not how you should be communicating in a relationship.
Yeah.
Everything that you say should come from a place of love. It should come from a place of trying to ensure mutual understanding. And so another big issue for us in terms of the challenges in our marriage when it came to communication was tone. For years, Frank didn't even accept that tone existed.
Yeah, it took me a while.
It would be just ignore how I'm saying it. Just listen to what I'm saying.
Yeah, listen to what I'm saying. Yeah, that was my phrase for a number of years. Let's not start picking on the tone of my voice. Forget about that. And just listen to what I'm telling you. And it's no, but the tone sets.
The tone sets the tone. Yeah. So communication is not just the words you've chosen, but it's the choice of words, it's your choice of tone, it's the way you say it, your body language associated with it, and even when you chose to say it, what happened just before you said it, that can have a big impact on the message you're trying to convey.
That's true. That is very true. Yeah.
So I think some of our biggest challenge, like we said, was you not listening sometimes, me not listening, both of us not listening.
Not listening at all.
My tone being very authoritative and aggressive sometimes, and Frank's tone being dismissive and uninterested.
Yeah.
Belittling.
Well, I would have got up.
I think one of the challenges we had was that you had this thing where in conflict, he would want to shut down. So in order to try and shut the conversation down, he would try to act like I'm not important to him. Yeah, you would try to like... Your whole thing was to act like you don't care.
Yeah.
Which always used to hurt my feelings because it was like he would just act like our relationship is not as serious as it was. And he would just not want to like talk about things. So when we're cool, he could talk to me about his feelings and what's going on and da-da-da. But when we weren't cool, he would be acting like he doesn't know me. He's just like, he can't express himself. So that was hard.
Well, maybe there's something around, communicating through conflict.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing, you can express yourself when things are good in a positive light, but when things go sour, how do you still get your message across in a calm and I don't think I knew how to do that. So for me, my approach was to not do that at all. My approach was to just like,
don't communicate. When in conflict, don't communicate.
Down.
And that, oh my God, that was another issue.
Yeah.
That was like another big issue for us. Yeah. Frank is definitely a stonewaller. Not now, but he was definitely, he was a stonewaller. So what stonewalling is like someone has done something you don't like, and instead of communicating that you're upset with them, you will just shut down from them and start to ignore them.
Terrible.
It's terrible.
It's absolutely terrible.
It's actually a form of punishment in a way.
It is.
And he never felt like it was a form of punishment. He didn't think it was a form of communication, but it was a form of communication. He was using like a withdrawal of engagement as a way to communicate that he's upset.
Yeah.
So communication can even be with no words at all.
That's very, very true. And I did that for a number of years, actually. Yeah.
And some people will be listening to this podcast like, how did you even put up with him doing that? And I think...
she loved me.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know about that.
You did.
No, I did love you, but I think one of the things I understood about Frank was that he'd never really seen a relationship play out. And so he was really dealing with this stuff for the first time. So we've both never been in a serious relationship. So I understood that there was things that we were both just not going to understand, and we're just not going to be able to really get a first try.
Yeah.
So when he used to kind of do the stonewalling, I never even realized how much of an issue it is. It actually took me a few years to realize what the issue was, because we'd be upset and then he'll just not talk to me, and it took me a long time to realize that this is not right. And this is one of the reasons why we're doing a podcast like this, because there's probably people out there in a relationship and they're doing that. They get upset. He used to say to me, when I get upset, I don't like to talk. But that's stonewalling. That's shutting down. That's withdrawing.
It's terrible.
And all of that is really, really like...
It's not healthy.
It's not healthy. The relationship, the person will just tire of you.
Yeah, they will.
So how would you say we dealt with our biggest challenges? What did we do in our marriage to kind of overcome those challenges?
If I remember correctly, I think we started researching communication. I remember we doing that.
Who did?
We both did. We both did. About who did? We both did. I mean, after years of complaining.
How many years? It wasn't that long. You're making it sound like I was
It wasn't that long. It wasn't that long.
We weren't even married.
It was when we were like in a relationship.
Yeah, we weren't married.
We weren't married yet. I think by the time we got married, I think everything cool, everything crisp, everything was good. Like, but how do we get started working on the communication? I think after you had been complaining for a while about it, I think I finally started listening to what you were saying.
Yeah.
I think that's where it kind of started. I started listening. Okay, she
can't be mad.
She's not. She can't
all be mad.
There's a point to this. So when I started listening, that's when I started realizing that, oh snap, this is bad. This is what I'm doing. And I looked into it, what you were saying. I did some research into it. I found out what
into stonewalling
is like. Right, you're actually doing this.
Yeah.
You need to stop it, kind of thing. And then from there, we just kind of progressed into the way we communicated. And I think it was mainly like from you were encouraging me on how else I could communicate. And then we looked further into better ways to communicate. And I think by the time we got married,
Yeah, we were much better.
We were much
but we
better,
were
yeah.
together for 8 years before we got married.
So I think we got
Yeah.
quite a lot out of our system and stuff in terms of like communicate. I remember it got quite bad at times that we'll be like in a public place and
Oh.
yep, I'm gonna put it out there. In the public place and you know, we're talking, I'm trying to like whisper and then Nura is just talking loud about, you can't talk to me like that. You can't be, I'm like, shh, we're in Woolwich, man. Come on, don't embarrass me like this. You're like, no, I'm not gonna have that, Frank. I'm like, So when you've been through a few of those, you need to change now. You be like, this girl just yabbing me like this in a public environment. So you kind of like, okay, this is serious. Like, let me just stop doing what I'm doing. Like, you know, then you look more into it.
Oh God! Oh my
But it's the
God!
truth. Like, I'm just giving an example. Like, it's when those kind of things are happening. I'm like, okay, you know, I actually love this girl, and she can't be that crazy. You know, for her to kick off in a public place, it's like, okay, there's something. I'm definitely doing something wrong. Okay, let me sort this out. You know, I think it kind of started from there. And then, yeah.
Oh my God! And obviously, people are probably listening to that. Like, how did you put up with a girl like that? But I was quite young as well. Like when you're younger, like
young.
what I look like now, going off in a public place. Like, see, that's another thing that you learn from. Like.
Yeah.
You know, that was another thing I had to learn. Like, I had to learn about the time and place. Like, just because Frank has done something and it's upset me does not mean I need to pop off wherever I am. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying about, like, the way I used to communicate and deal with conflict was fight or flight. And I would be, like, to fight.
Yeah.
You know, and I wouldn't really care where I am. Like, you're not going to disrespect me. It is a very strong energy. And a lot of it comes from being raised by men. So it was hard for me to kind of learn to pick when the best time is to actually go in on about something. Yeah. And it was not in public.
And that was pretty calm those days, you know.
Oh, Frank was calm.
I learned to diffuse the situation, like, you know.
You were like, diffuse the bomb.
I was pretty calm. It was. I never once thought, oh my God, I have to leave this girl. Like, I need to get rid of this girl.
Do you know why you never thought that? Because you knew what you did was off the chain.
Maybe.
Most of the time, it was the way he was speaking to me, or
Frank was. It's the tone. It's the tone. It's not the things I was saying to you. It's just the tone of it. You felt like you were listening. You were speaking to me, and I wasn't hearing what you were saying.
Yeah.
And when I was responding to you, it wasn't the tone that you were expecting.
Yeah, and sometimes it wasn't the words that I wanted you to say.
I know.
It was dismissive.
Yeah, I understand. When I look back now, I do understand. Like, yeah, like definitely. But you know,
those were the days.
I still had to be calm. I still had to be like, you know what? I love this chick.
No, he wasn't saying that. Don't mind him. I love this. He was not saying I love this chick in the middle of an outburst.
No, but obviously I wasn't. But I was thinking, why did I just walk away?
You did many times.
Like, no, I walked away to diffuse the situation. I was like, I cannot stand here and keep getting embarrassed. Imagine a big boy like me, and you're just yabbing me there. Like, I was just had to walk away. Because that kind of thing could get out of hand, didn't it?
Yeah, I know, but
so it wasn't
that bad. I mean, we're making it seem like we were full blown.
So if there's any CCTV footage of please just drop it on the link below.
Yeah, no. I mean, it wasn't that bad. No, it wasn't that bad. You could tell we were arguing, but we weren't on like about.
We weren't going crazy, like throwing things at. It wasn't that bad. But to our standards, it was bad.
Put your boxing gloves on, energy. It wasn't like that, but it, you know, for what we, for our standard,
it was
it's unacceptable, man. You can't be arguing in public. Like, I wouldn't do that now ever. Like, in public, I would just give him a look and be like, I'd just be like, we'll talk later. Exactly. In my mind, I'm like, whew, I have to calm down and just be like, all right, it's not that serious. But that doesn't
even happen anymore. You don't even get to that anymore.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. But there was a time
before you get to that, we've already communicated. We're already talking in our minds to each other. It's like Professor X. I'm telling you. Yeah. That's
now we're much more like think. We can just look at each other and know like.
I know that. Not the time.
Nah, don't do that. Don't do that. But yeah, now we've got a lot more. Yeah. A lot more.
But it did take years to work.
Yeah, and also before I got to that point where I could now communicate without, you know, like I could actually hold my anger in and not communicate there and then in public, or amongst people, I did have to do a kind of
Yeah. So you're still transitioning.
yeah, I was transitioning into the calm wife that I wanted to be. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I can't let this guy let me get out of my character. And my character is I'm very fighter-esque, I would say. I'm very strong-willed, but I'm very loving as well. I'm not all strong-willed, isn't it? Right.
Listen, there's the strong will. That's one of the reasons why I picked you.
Oh.
Yeah, the strong willed.
Why?
Yeah.
Why would you pick a strong-willed, aggressive?
Because it's challenging.
So you...
I like a bit of challenge, you get me? Yeah? Yeah.
No, I'm not that challenging, Frank. I'm actually really I'm
Not in a challenge, not
really
challenging in a bad way, but it's kind of like, when you're strong-willed, when you meet someone that's strong-willed and you're not,
It's attractive. Opposite attract.
No, that I'm not strong-willed, but like...
Yeah, you're very strong-willed.
If you're strong-willed and I'm strong-willed, I want to see how strong-willed you are. So I'm like, I'm going to get me some of that,
You need help.
So you went through that transition.
Yeah, and I had to learn
you had to learn
that,
be calm about it.
You had to be calm. I had to be like, not everything is do or die. Like,
I remember we spoke several times about it.
Yeah,
and stuff, and
about arguing in public.
About arguing in public and what we can do better to improve our relationship, so like the way we communicate, to avoid doing that. And I think after we started communicating in that way, I think it stopped straight away.
So what did we do to stop? Let's address some of the points. So what did we do to stop communicating or arguing in public in terms of conflict?
We just found a better time to speak about things. And first of all, obviously, I had to address the way I spoke to you. First, we had to find that the main cause of the problem, which was, the tonality of what I was saying to you. I think when I started addressing that, we then got to a point whereby it was a case of, if there is any conflict or any disagreement, we wait for the right time before we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Or we wait till we get indoors and then fight it out.
No, we never fight it out. But yeah, you decided to stop moving crazy. Normally it would...
So it was just me that
you were moving mad. The thing is, I'm a very calm person.
And
you can vouch for that. No, Frank, you can vouch. You can vouch for the fact that I will only go off when I'm provoked.
And I don't. I just go off without being provoked.
You would do the provoking in public when we were younger, in our relationship.
No, I used to tease you a lot.
Frank would whisper provocation. Like we would not be happy with each other, and he would literally say something that he knows is going to upset me, because he's good. He's not like a physically aggressive person, but he was verbally aggressive. Yeah, you would use words that hurt.
Aggressive.
You're not like that now, so it's easy to talk about it. But you would say things like, what would you say to me that would tick me off? I don't care, but I don't care what you think.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I would.
And I'd be like, red flags. I would just be like, how are you going to talk to me? I would just be so upset.
Your eyes would get red like those mad bulls in them.
Yeah, but that's the thing. All of that should have...
It's just
those
trigger words.
These were trigger words, and you knew they were trigger words. And the thing is...
Well, did I know they were trigger words? I don't think I was doing it on purpose. At that point, I myself was just angry. I did not know how to control my emotions.
Yeah.
Rather than keeping it to myself and then not make the situation worse, I'll feel like I need to say something. Then I will say something like that, and then it's like,
try to have the last word.
Yeah. Then it's like, I shouldn't have said that. But by that time, it's too late.
Yeah. And so when you guys are hearing this, like the issues we have with communication, now you can see why I say when we started dating, we broke up a few times, because the way he would conduct himself or the arguments, or even, and it's not just him, I mean, even me talking to him in an aggressive manner, in an authoritative manner is hard for him, right? Because his masculine energy would not like that. Most of the time I'd say, Frank was moving mad, but it was probably the way I said something, and then he will respond with hurtful words. Maybe he didn't like my tone, and so he will respond with a hurtful word.
Yeah.
Oh, not hurtful word, but a hurtful phrase. Like
sly comments and stuff. Sly remarks and stuff.
Sly remarks or something like that. And I wouldn't let that lie. I would definitely go off on that. So, and we were younger as well, but there's a lot of young couples, and there's people in relationships triggering each other all the time. And a lot of the times it's like, well, there's a way to deal with conflict in a relationship, and that is definitely not it. In public with an aggressive tone, or not listening to the other person, just trying to get your own point across. Those are some of the issues that we dealt with, and you know, we had to start to realize that they were causing the issues in our relationship.
They were.
Not listening to each other is causing the issues. Because nobody's heard.
Yeah, and I think if we hadn't been willing to change back then, our relationship would have been done for. Yeah, very, very easily. That would have been.
You've got to kind of want your relationship to work more than you want to be right.
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah.
Another thing we want to touch on is, you know, so communication is not just about conflict, but when you are thinking about how your partner deals with conflict resolution, it was also good to think about their attachment styles. Now, I've been talking to one of my close friends quite recently about attachment styles, and there are 4 main attachment styles. You could be either anxious, preoccupied, dismissive, avoidant, fearful, avoidant, or securely attached. I'm not going to go into detail about this because I think it's probably better suited for maybe a podcast about conflict resolution more specifically. We'll talk a bit more in the future about the 4 attachment types in next season, because this topic is about communication in general. But the attachment styles is something to definitely look up. 4 attachment styles do affect how people deal with conflict. They affect a lot of other things in relationships. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of know a bit more about that and research that if you're interested in understanding a bit more about the attachment styles. So communication is not just about negativity. You know, it's also about feeling heard. It's also about sharing with your partner, staying in touch with each other. And I don't even mean this in terms of if you're in a relationship and you don't live together. Even when you live together, it's important to stay in touch with each other. You could be in the same house and be really, really disconnected.
Yeah, I agree. That's why, you know, when we spoke a couple of episodes ago about date nights, then one of the important things about date night is having that time to communicate with one another, to discuss things.
Yeah, absolutely. How would we say we express our feelings for one another? How do we communicate our feelings?
Through your love languages.
So you wrote these questions, you didn't have any answers.
No,
I beg.
I didn't think we were good.
I beg.
I thought we'd just pick up some of them.
Prep the questions and he doesn't have any answers. Just look at me there.
I'm not meant to have all that. Okay.
How do we express our feelings
towards one another? I think we've learned each other's love languages. So I think your love language being one of them being the touch as well, being touched. So that's how I express my feelings. That if I've missed you, I will touch. I will give you a hug and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's a form of communication.
Yeah. And
what do you mean? And
what's my other language? Oh, gee.
Words of affirmation, isn't it? I tell you I love you. Tell you I missed you. Yeah. Sweet words. Yeah.
And Frank's communication, like I said, there is the book by Gary Chapman about the 5 love languages, and that is a good way to really understand how to communicate with the other person. We've mentioned it in a previous episode, but a lot of the way we communicate with each other is through those love languages. Well, we're not doing it in a kind of contrived way,
no.
But we remember how the other person understands a message, how they kind of like to receive feelings of love, you know, or acts of love.
Yeah.
So with Frank's main love language being acts of service, most of the time, the best way to communicate my feelings towards him is through an act of service. He's getting on my nerves because he's nodding away here, but it's basically to do something for him, make his tea, help him with something that he's working on or anything like that. Frank likes when someone takes their time to kind of do something nice for him. Yeah, so that...
But we say, how do we express our feelings towards each other, right? Okay, we've spoken about the acts of services, parts of it, but what about the actual feelings? Like, if we're upset with each other, how do we express it? I mean, this is something that I'm still working on.
So why are you doing this podcast?
This is something I'm still improving
I'm joking.
on. I'm still improving on this because I still have to remember to express myself more.
But why is it so hard for you?
It's hard for me because I'm just not used to it. I'm just not
19 years?
No. Oh, sometimes some of these things they take a while. Sometimes you say, oh, I did not like you know what you done. I didn't like this. I didn't like that. But sometimes it's just like you don't see it as a big deal.
It's always a big deal.
No, Frank. I know. But you don't. It's like
men have a tendency sometimes. Most men have a tendency to feel like their feelings are not a big deal. Like something has happened.
Yeah.
But they feel a certain way, but they will diminish it.
Be a man about it.
There's no being a man about it. This is what kills relationships.
Okay.
It's very easy to fall into the hands of someone else if you're bearing your feelings. And we've never had to deal with that problem, but that's one of the reasons why communication is a big deal for us. Because, for me, because I do feel like you need to make sure that your partner knows when you're not feeling loved or appreciated.
I agree.
You can't just go around feeling unloved and unappreciated and just keeping that to yourself, because you're not giving them a chance to kind of fix something, you know?
Yeah.
So I think if we were really going to talk about how we express our feelings towards one another, it's probably through some of the things we said in the last couple of episodes where we were talking about the opportunities we produce in our relationship intentionally so that we can talk to each other about how we feel.
Yeah. Also things like date night and
couples time,
yes,
yearly reviews. Like we're always talking to each other on WhatsApp throughout the day, even though we're in the same house.
Yeah.
And I guess I have a thing when it comes to speaking to each other on WhatsApp. I don't like us communicating in a conflict over WhatsApp.
You can't resolve any conflict over WhatsApp.
Or over any instant messaging service. You can't be texting each other in the midst of conflict. You know?
Yeah.
We make sure that if we have an issue that we meet face to face and talk about it. Mm-hmm. You know, we'll find some time in the evening when the kids are in bed or something and then we talk about it. So, one of the ways we express our feelings to each other is through our planned communication slots of talking through stuff. I would also say it's through our check-ins, because we have this thing where we kind of, if we really want to know what the other person's feeling, we send them this message on WhatsApp and it's 3 questions. How are you feeling today on a scale of 1 to 10? What is making you feel that way? And what can I do for you today? So it's like, what can I do to help improve or to make that better? And it's not always a negative. Sometimes I've sent it to Frank before and he's feeling 5 out of 5, you know? Was it, that's going to say a scale of 1 to 10? It was a scale of 1 to 5.
1 to 5, 1 to 5, yeah.
How are you feeling on a scale of 1 to 5? What's making you feel that way? What can I do for you today? And we send that to each other on WhatsApp, and it's something that we don't communicate face to face.
Yeah.
So the whole point of it is to check in on the other person, and they don't have to feel pressured to kind of justify what they're feeling. They will just respond with their number, what's making them feel that way, and what they need from the other person.
Yeah. It's worked really well.
Yeah. And we don't use it all the time, but if we do feel like checking in on the other person, we send them that.
Yeah. So sometimes there's just a lot happening.
Yeah.
And, it's just a useful thing to get. And then just taking that time to read the questions and actually self-analyze.
Yeah. It's nice to receive it, because sometimes you don't even really think like, how am I feeling on 1 to 10? And it also means that the other person knows how to kind of deal with you, because if you're on a scale of 1 to 5, you're on, I keep saying 1 to 10, but if you're on a scale of 1 to 5, you're on a 1, then he knows that Frank would know that that's a hard day.
I think we should start doing that every other day.
We don't do it that frequently.
But as I said, I think we should start doing it every other day.
You think so? Increase it.
Yeah, I think we should increase the frequency of it.
Okay, we'll do it more often. It sounds like he needs it.
No.
Frank needs to check in. I need to check in on Frank. But we need to check in on each other. So you're right. Let's do it more frequently.
Yeah. So how do we deal with any communication gaps? Do you think we have any communication gaps?
So what is a communication gap?
I would say a communication gap is where currently in that process of improving your communication, but there are things that you still need to work on. Like I said at the beginning of this part, when I said that I'm still working on expressing myself like immediately when I'm feeling that thing right anytime.
Yeah.
Be more expressive. Just saying, look, you're not like this or blah blah blah. You know.
Yeah. Sometimes it takes you time.
It takes me time to process it. I have to go away. It might be like an hour, 2 hours.
But by that time, he's already started reacting to it. He's already started his Operation Stonewall.
I don't do that anymore, remember?
So what do you do then?
Huh?
What do you do?
Operation Destroyer.
What's Operation Destroyer? What do you do? How do you deal with it then? If you're saying you don't stonewall anymore, and I'm not saying he does, I'm just saying like it's interesting.
Sometimes I try to analyze how I'm feeling and what you've actually done wrong, and it's hard to do sometimes. And obviously having kids does not make it easy. And especially if the kids are at home, I just need a moment to myself to think, okay, why am I so upset about this specific thing that Nuri has done? And by that time, rather than just saying that, okay, I think you've upset me, but I just need to try and understand what you've actually done wrong and blah, 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 you know, instead of just trying to think to myself which then leads to me ignoring you, or you might feel like I'm ignoring you, I'm not saying anything to you.
Yeah, because normally if you feel like the other person's done something wrong, you're going to start reacting to them immediately.
Immediately, yeah.
Even when you don't understand it yet. That's why it's important to just come out with it and just say, I'm upset with you, but I don't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah, but sometimes I do feel like when I've analysed I realize it's not a big deal to me. And then I kind of move on. But by that time, you're already feeling like he's not talking to me. And whatnot, because my analysis process is a bit of a pre-Stonewall. It's a bit of like a...
So basically, you still Stonewall, but you just don't want to admit that you do.
I don't.
I don't feel Stonewall.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly. So you don't. So that's not what it is. It's a bit like I just need some time to just process.
Yeah, and in the past, I will be honest. In the past, when Frank would give me any inkling of not being happy with me, I would go into kind of like detective solve it mode. I would try and figure out what I've done. I would get uneasy. I would ask him what's wrong. He'll be saying nothing. I will insist. We'll get into an argument. And now I don't really do that. So if Frank is acting funny, or what I would call funny, I'll ask him what's wrong. If he says nothing, I'll ask him if he's sure. And if he says yes, I won't ask him again. Mm-hmm. And then I myself would just kind of step back. So I'm not going to like stonewall him, but I would give him space. Like I just make sure that I'm not around him as much, or just give him time so that when he's ready to come and talk to me, he can. Because if I ask him what's wrong and he says nothing, most of the time I know it's something, but he's just not ready to say it. And that used to be a big issue with us. Like, me asking Frank what's wrong and I know something's wrong and him saying nothing. And he's not allowed to do that anymore. He's not allowed to say nothing, just nothing. Because most of the time I'm he's looking at me like, I'm not allowed, huh? No, in the sense that we have discussed it and we've agreed that you will always say what's wrong, even if it's, I'm just tired.
You have to make up something. I'm like, you have my feelings. Just have something to say.
I can't.
Sorry.
Don't make me laugh.
No. I have to say something and even if I have to say it, I just need some time to process it. I'm upset about something.
But I don't know. Watch this space.
I'll let you know it.
Tune in for the next episode of What is Wrong with Frank. No, but
it's not as bad.
No, it's not as bad.
I think now it's like we're more expressive.
It used to be that there was a period of time where we agreed that Frank would not say nothing.
Yeah.
When I ask him, because if I'm asking you what's wrong, there's always something. It might not be me. It might be something else. It might be that he's tired. It might be that he's stressed about something at work, or he's thinking about something that he's worried about. But there was always something.
Yeah.
And we recognize that if your partner is feeling like something's off with you, more often than not, something is off with you. It might not be anything to do with the relationship. And I think when I used to ask Frank what's wrong, he always felt like I'm saying what's wrong with our relationship, what's wrong between us. And he'll be like, nothing, because sometimes there was nothing wrong between us. He's maybe annoyed about something else that he hasn't really processed yet. So sometimes it was not even about me, but by insisting, I would make it about me and it would become an argument.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing that. I would ask him, he has to tell me something. But if it's nothing, then I know that he's not processed it yet. If he's insisting it's nothing, I leave it, because it means that whatever it is, he has not processed it and he's not ready to talk about it. And therefore, I need to go about my merry way and just leave him alone. And it's much easier to do now and he knows I'm going to do that now. There's not going to be any push. I'm not going to try to argue with him. If you want to be a baby, I'm going to leave you alone, okay? I'm going to leave you alone. And when you're ready to talk like an adult, we can talk. That's the approach I take now.
Okay.
But no, not just like that, but also about giving him his space and just, it's
important.
It's not always on my terms. Like when I insist we talk, we must talk. That's not really, I had to learn that that's not the way either.
True. Yeah, so going back to the question about the communication gap.
I don't think there's a lot of gaps, but I definitely think there's gaps, because even you yourself said you're working on telling me how you're feeling straight away. I also think there's communication gap. Even though we communicate so much, there's also communication gap when it comes to, I wouldn't say it's a gap, but it's something that we're still working on when it comes to dealing with conflict where we're both hurting. Where we've both got our own vantage point for that issue. And we're doing so much better now, where we can hear the same situation and we can discuss the same situation, but we'll first discuss it from Frank's point of view and how he's feeling and what's making him feel the way he's feeling. And then we'll also discuss it from my point of view. And in the past, we used to try and discuss both points of views at the same time.
Yeah.
And all it was doing was going back and forth.
Yeah.
Nobody could be right.
Yeah.
And like we said before, it's like now we realise that we're both right or we're both wrong. Neither of us is more right than the other. And so now when we discuss things, when we're discussing Frank's point of view and he's telling me how he's feeling about how he sees it, I really try to connect with how he's feeling at that point in time.
You listen.
I listen. I really try to put myself in his shoes. I'm like, oh my gosh, that must feel so crap, that must be annoying. Like I can really feel it, and I would tell him, like, yeah, I can see how that comes across to you. I'm really sorry that's made you feel like that, or maybe I wasn't paying attention to how that might make you feel. But I would always make an effort not to discuss my side of it on the same day. Because when we do that, it actually just leads to an argument. But I would leave it in my head as like unfinished business, and then another day we'll talk about my side of that issue and how it comes across for me and why I struggle with it. So or what I was doing or why I was doing things the way I was doing it and how I feel Frank is behaving, or what impact his behavior is having on me. And so I feel like another thing that we do in terms of plugging the communication gap is we try not to talk about the same issue from two different perspectives at the same time. Because it helps to focus on that one person and validate that one person and leave it there.
But sometimes it's not just talk about your part another day. Sometimes it might just be a couple of hours. Because I remember in the past we've addressed how you felt, your point of views and stuff, and then we took some time apart, like a couple of hours apart, and then we discussed my point of view. So I think it really helped. I think it really helped because you felt listened to, you felt what you were saying mattered. It
does help. And I think also it's just one of those things where the more you do it, the better you get at it.
And it takes practice.
It takes practice. You definitely get better at it. And I think you do start to realize that you both want your relationship to work. When you start listening to each other, you hear how much the other person wants the relationship to work and how they're not being unreasonable. And vice versa, the other person hears how much you want it to work and how you're just hurting or you're just, wounded from something, so that you can help each other. I always give the analogy of, like, if you hurt your partner, if you think of it like accidentally hurting them, like let's say you were chopping onions in the kitchen or something and they came next to you and you accidentally hurt them with the knife, you would not focus on explaining to your partner how it was an accident that you hurt them with the knife. you would just deal with the wound. You will stop the bleeding. You will dress the wound. If it's urgent, you will take them to A&E. You know, you've hurt them with the knife accidentally. You didn't mean to, but you were holding the knife and you hurt the partner. So you have to take responsibility for that and help them. Imagine how ludicrous it is in that situation to stand there with your partner bleeding and they're in pain, and to insist on them first accepting that it was an accident before you help them. That's kind of what we do in relationships. You know, the other person is hurt and we're just insisting that they understand that it was not purposeful and you didn't see it that way. And to be honest, they shouldn't have walked into the kitchen when you were chopping onions with a knife. And why did they come so close to you anyway? And, you know, it's like, but I'm actually here bleeding. Can we just address my wound? And, you know, once I'm better, then you can explain how this happened. But first of all, let's just address the wound. And so that's one of the ways to think of it. Like, if you've hurt your partner, try and picture yourself actually accidentally hurting them with a knife, because you're not intentionally trying to hurt them. Well, there's some sick partners out there that intentionally trying to hurt their partners.
Exactly.
But but most of the time, no, those ones you need to break up with them, they're psychotic. But most of the time, you only hurt your partner by accident because you have a different vantage point. You know, so in that case, think of that visual representation or that analogy that I've given, and think to yourself, when you're defending yourself, think to yourself, oh, what if this was an actual wound? I hurt them by accident. Is this how I would be reacting? And if it's not, then stop, you know, and from there, just deal with your partner. And then afterwards, you can explain to them why you did it and everything else. I think that's important, because then you don't, nobody feels like they're unimportant. Nobody feels like they're being attacked. But do you think that works?
I think it does. I really think it does work.
But you are different from me. So you are much more, I think I would tell you when you've hurt me way more than you would tell me when I've hurt you.
Yeah. I think that's the case. I think that goes back to this whole how men feel about expressing ourselves and stuff. This is what I talk about. That's something I'm still working on. It doesn't feel right to just badger on about everything that you've done to me and whatnot, or I might be feeling a certain way about. That's why I tend to like take a while to process it, go away, process it. You know, in my head, it's a case of, is this big enough to talk to Nuri about? But sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's just something small, like you moved that thing from there and I didn't like it.
But I actually think everything is big enough. You know, I would want you to tell me everything, even if it's small, but because we can small things become big things.
Yeah, but not some of these small things. Some of these small things you just do them once or twice and then you never do them again. And another day I will tell you, when we're all like joking, like, stop doing that. Like, stop doing that. Like, you kind of just stop. But if I said at that point in time, it may not have gone down well, because I would have said it in a probably in an angry tone, or in a way like, you know, why do you keep doing that?
Yeah.
And then it's not going to come across really well. So I just take a step back, as you know, like, have time to process it. And it might be a case of, no, but that's minor. That's a minor thing. Point it to some more. But if it's a big thing, I will come to you and say, if you're right, you know, that thing that you did, especially if our date night is coming, you know, I could just keep that to one side and say, maybe I'll just bring this up on our date night. And because we do talk about what's gone well, what hasn't gone well, you know, what can I do better to blah blah blah. That's part of our discussions and stuff. So
yeah,
I use those time as well. No,
but
I will not build up anything that's like really important that would impact the both of us immediately, and just keep it inside. Yeah. So in terms of communications, do you think there are anything off limits in our marriage that, you know, we just wouldn't go there, we just wouldn't talk about? I don't think there is.
No, I don't think there is.
I believe we discuss everything.
We literally we discuss everything. Like, and this is what we were talking about in the past about being best friends. Like, I don't think there's anything I can't talk to Frank about. And if I did feel like I can't talk to Frank about something, then that's an issue. That I would talk to him about the fact that I feel like I can't talk to him about something.
Why can't you talk to me about it? And then we then discuss it.
Any small thing, anything that's bothering me, anything that's bothering him, we just kind of talk about it. And I think that's healthy. I think we should always talk about everything.
I agree.
Yeah. Have we touched on how we handle differences of opinion?
Yeah, we mentioned the whole, like, we talked from my point of view
Yeah.
and then your point of view. I think that's a difference of opinion. Yeah, I think we have.
Yeah, we spoke about differences of opinion, especially in conflict in the relationship. We try to stick with the person's point of view that we are discussing at that point in time. We try not to mix up the different points of views because the other person can become quite defensive. But then if we have a difference of opinion on something a lot more, that's not really a conflict, but like, let's say something more social, you know, something more societal based or something like that. We're not too fussed about differences of opinion in that sense.
No.
Like, we understand that we're different people.
Yeah, we can't just agree that, okay, that's how you
see it,
and
yeah.
this is how I see it. It's kind of like on social media.
Yeah.
You know, I think social media is the devil, but you don't think that's the case. No, it's just an example.
I'm always laughing when you think social media is the devil. Like, you're not on social media right now. I can't.
No. You know,
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah. But you see it in a different light. You see it as like opportunity and rare, you know. So,
and I see a way to reach out to people. But at the same time, I can see where Frank is coming from. And that's what we do to deal with differences of opinion. We try to think about what the other person is trying to say. Try to listen in order to understand, not listen to respond or to combat or to shut down.
That's important. We do a lot of listening to respond.
In relationship.
Not listening to understand what that person is saying. That's something that you need to learn in relationship.
You have to. And I always say as well, not to go back to conflict resolution, but I always say as well, you need to, this is going to sound like what we always say, you need to remember that the relationship is more important. Not more important than you or how you feel, but the end goal is for you guys to better your relationship.
To be successful. If that relationship is, or the marriage is like a company, the end goal.
We're back to work. We're back to work.
The end goal is for that company to be successful, so that marriage to be successful, that relationship to be successful. Like you just said. So that's the end goal. So never forget what the end goal is about.
And you have to do it together.
It's bigger than
this issue.
It's bigger than it. So that's how you've got to see it.
And I say that a lot. Like, you have to make sure that you're arguing with instead of your client being you, your client should be the relationship in your head. So you're arguing for the relationship. You're not arguing for yourself.
That's it. That's the best way to put it.
And so sometimes,
because when you start arguing for yourself, then it's kind of like it's me against this relationship. It's like you're moving yourself away from the relationship, which is terrible.
Exactly. But if your client is the relationship and you're the advocate for your client, then you'll be like, okay, there's an issue here. The issue is that we can't agree on this, but both of our clients is this relationship. So how can we move forward for the sake of this relationship? What can we do to make things easier on each other so that we can move forward? And sometimes, trust me, you're going to communicate yourself out of a relationship. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because sometimes it's only through communication that you're going to realize sometimes that certain people are not right for you.
That's true.
And
they're not willing to fight for the relationship.
They're not willing to self-analyze. They're not willing to do the work. They just want to point fingers. Their client is themselves. And that's not going to work. If you're in a relationship and you're fighting for the relationship, but the other person's fighting for themselves, it's pretty much a wrap until they can. It's a huge red flag. Until they can get on board, and they may never do. You literally cannot go forward because they're basically in a relationship with themselves. So that stuff is really, really important to remember as well. You know, you're a team, you're in this together. Any conflict or any issue or anything that you're facing, it should come from a place of a united front. You're trying to solve this issue for each other, for the relationship, not for yourself, for things to go your way. How do we make sure our needs are being met in the relationship?
How do we make sure our needs are being met? By prioritizing each other. I think by prioritizing each other, by ensuring that I'm there for you, I'm there to listen to you.
You think that's a way of ensuring that your needs are being met in the relationship?
No, to make sure that what I do for you, so that you ensure that your needs are being met in the relationship. So if you're going through things and I know you want to talk about it, I know you want to discuss it, want me to hear what you've got to say. I need to be present there for you. I need to be there for you. So that's part of your needs being met.
And it's actually funny that you responded in that way, because the question is, how do we make sure our needs are being met in the relationship? And your response, which is right, because this is how we are, but your response was about what you do to make sure my needs are being met.
Yeah.
And that is basically the answer. You know, we make sure that other person's needs are being met. Instead of trying to make sure our own needs are being met.
Yeah.
And because I know that Frank's got my back, he's going to make sure my needs are being met, I can make sure his needs are being met. So the way we make sure that our needs are being met is by meeting each other's needs, by listening to the other person, understanding what they need, and trying to make sure that we can help them to get what they need out of this relationship. So it's not always thinking about, well, my needs need to be met. What do I want? The only time we get like that is when we feel like the other person is putting themselves before the relationship and before the other person.
Yeah.
And then, and even in that case, we'll express how we're feeling. Like, I feel unappreciated, or I don't feel like. My whole thing is, I don't feel like you're affectionate. That you haven't been affectionate today.
Yeah.
But Frank will always pick up on that and be like, yeah, you're right. And, you know, he'll make sure that he steps it up and stuff. So we communicate how we're feeling so that the other person knows how to meet our needs. But at the same time, we focus more on meeting each other's needs as opposed to meeting our own needs somehow.
Because if you prioritize the other person, chances are they will prioritize you.
Yeah.
So your thinking should be around prioritizing them and ensure that you meet their needs, and they'll do exactly the same thing. And if that person is not reciprocating what you're doing, then you know there's a problem there. Like straight away.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's only going one way, then you know that, okay, right, what am I getting out of this then?
Yeah.
Because does this person really feel, this way about me, or
Okay, so we're on to our useful tips. So some of the things that we think in terms of tips that can actually help with relationships when it comes to communication and help you to remember how to communicate with each other. Some from our own personal experience, like we've been talking about, are understand what your partner doesn't like when it comes to communication. Some partners might not mind you being more authoritative. Some partners need you to say things at a certain time or a certain way. But understand how your partner prefers to be communicated to and try and stick to that way of communicating. Don't just think about how you prefer to communicate to them. And that's kind of similar to the whole love language thing. How do they feel heard? How do they feel loved? How do they feel listened to? You have to try and understand your partner and kind of use that method so that you can have the best communication.
True.
Avoid public displays of anger and conflict because that can only escalate an issue even further. And that's from our own experience.
Yeah, definitely.
Try to kind of restrain yourself from arguing in public, or restrain yourself from making it clear to other people you're upset with your partner, because that can affect what they think of your partner in the long run. And it's normally from that one moment, and it can affect how they think of you as well.
That's true.
Yeah, so
that is true.
That's another tip from kind of our personal experience. What would you say another tip is from our personal experience?
I would say find time to communicate, find time to talk.
Yeah.
Like, set time to talk to them, listen to each other, use opportunities like date night to communicate issues and get clarity on specific things. If there are any issues, don't let other things get in the way of communication. Like, don't leave it too long.
Or too late. Deprioritize it. Yeah. Another way you can find time to talk, which Frank and I do as well, is go for walks together. We don't do it as much in the winter, but we do it a lot more in the summer we just go, or summer, spring and autumn and stuff, we only when it's really, really cold, we don't really do it, but we try to go for like walks together, half an hour walks, maybe on a lunch break. We'll just coordinate our lunch break so that we're both on lunch break, and we just go for a walk around our area. We're really fortunate to have like lots of green space. And so we try to schedule walks together, and that is really, really nice and really beneficial. And it helps, and it's a way of making time to talk.
Definitely.
Another one would be, Frank already kind of said it, but make sure to listen and have an open mind. If you're really listening to the other person, you're not really thinking about your own version of events, and you're not jumping to conclusions, and you're open to different perspectives.
Yeah.
So you're listening to understand, you have an open mind, and you're open to a different perspective, and you're engaging and actively listening as well. Not just listening like you're hearing it, it's going in one ear out the other, but you ask questions, you ask them to clarify where you don't understand. You really, but sometimes you clarify what they've said, repeat what they've said back to them to check if that's what they mean. So active listening and keeping an open mind when you're doing that. What other tip?
Be respectful.
Yeah.
I think, always speak to each other with respect and kindness. But as I said before, your point of view or your point of view, because I'm going to respect that, you do the same thing to me. So it doesn't matter if we have, a huge difference to what we are saying. I would always respect what, your point of view.
Exactly, yeah. Respectful and understanding that you're different and being kind to each other in that respect. Also, like, avoid talking about your partner as the problem. I know that sounds weird, but like, avoid saying things like, you always do this, you always do that, because they don't always do anything really.
True.
Or making statements like, you do this or you do that, or you. Try and say I instead of you. So think, I feel like I'm not appreciated. I feel like you're doing this, or you talk about the thing that's being done being the problem, not your partner being the problem.
That's really, really good. That's a really good point.
Yeah,
because I think just changing that language it makes a huge difference. Because it feels like you can both work at the thing rather than it's just me.
Yeah. And I know some people think, but I sounds like it's all about you. And I'm like, yes, I can see where you would think that, but the opposite is saying, you don't make me feel loved.
Yeah.
As opposed to saying, I don't feel loved.
Yeah.
They're very different statements.
They are.
Because if you say, I don't feel loved, the person can think, what do I need to do to help them feel loved? But if you say, you don't make me feel loved, it's like, they are the problem.
The first part is solution focused. It's very much like, gets the person thinking, so what can I do to make this person feel loved, rather than like,
I don't feel supported.
Rather than getting the defensive mode that me,
I'm the one that's making them feel unloved.
Yeah,
exactly.
Another one is compromise. You must be willing to compromise when necessary. I think this is really important, like be able to
reach a resolution. To get to that place.
I think you got to be it also links to being that one you said about being open-minded as well. Like, if you're open-minded, I think you will come to resolution much quicker than if you just put up a wall
and just see it from your perspective.
And it's a bit harder to work with that person.
And compromise is all about putting the relationship first, like we said as well. It's about being like, okay, well, what's the best way forward here? We've faced the problem. What is the solution? How can we work together to come to a solution? It's not about sacrificing. Like I've said in previous episodes, a compromise shouldn't be a sacrifice. You shouldn't have to give up on what you want in order to let the relationship go forward. You should both have to give up a little bit of something. You should be trying to kind of come to a conclusion that's amicable, not just one person ends up getting everything they wanted and the other person got nothing. That's more of a sacrifice. So you have to really think about how you compromise and not just bending to the other person's will. There's a difference. Another tip is just to make sure you're honest when you're talking to each other as well, because you can communicate all you want, but if it's all a bunch of lies, then what was the point? If you're trying to play a role in a relationship, what's the point? You're just trying to be someone you're not. You're going to one day find that you haven't actually been in a relationship because you've been playing a role. The real you never got to be in that relationship.
Yeah.
So being honest, try not to lie or hide information from each other, because that just leads to mistrust. And mistrust leads to the relationship eventually ending because the other person doesn't feel that they can trust you, and they lose respect for you. And then you get frustrated because the other person doesn't have any respect for you. So be honest all the time.
Yeah.
Set boundaries. I think
this is important, but this is linked. Is this not linked to compromise?
No.
Okay.
Set boundaries is about respecting each other's boundaries. Like if the person does not like to have an hour-long conversation where they're debating the same issue, and that's a boundary for them. Set boundaries is about respecting the other person's, position. If the person does not like to have long discussions in the morning, or they don't like to have a conversation, a disagreement when it's gone on for longer than an hour, that kind of stuff should be understood and respected. Yeah. And expressed as well.
Yeah.
So you should express your boundaries. Make sure that your partner understands it. Yeah. And then respect each other's boundaries. Like I said before, realizing that Frank does not always like to have me insist that he analyze what he's feeling there and then just because I want to know what's wrong. Understanding that sometimes he needs space, and just giving him that space allows for him to, is like a boundary for him. He's not going to discuss things whenever I feel like he needs to discuss it. And I had to accept that as a boundary for him. If he really is not there yet, I can't push him to talk about something. So that's a boundary. Yeah. And have fun together.
Yeah.
Don't forget
enjoy each other's company.
Yeah. Enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
Do things together. Communication is not just talking about deep things or conflict. It's also playing games, getting to know each other. You're always changing in a relationship. You're always going to be growing, and you should try and grow together. So find out, what would you say is different about you today from last week? Or, ask each other fun questions, play games, do things together that will stimulate that kind of conversation and that kind of lighter side to you. Do things that you both enjoy as well.
Yeah.
So, communicate in all aspects. When it comes to serious things about your feelings, when it comes to conflicts, but also when it comes to fun, loving, carefree things as well. So keep that line of communication open at all times.
I agree. That's it.
Yep, so that's our tips. So this was the last episode, Frank, of the season.
Phew. I'm joking.
How do you feel? How do you feel having finished 12 episodes? We're going on the Easter break. How do you feel about having we've done our first season?
It's been great. It's been fantastic.
Lies you tell.
It's been a lot of hard work. I'm not gonna lie.
Challenging.
It's been challenging. Finding time to do the episodes, and having 2 kids and whatnot. And it has been challenging.
Yeah, it's been hard.
Fun. But it's been fun.
It's been hard but fun.
Yeah.
And I think I've really enjoyed it because we've gotten to talk about stuff that is just so. I think
crucial
to our relationship.
I think on this first season, it's been like a journey.
Yeah.
Where we've discovered quite a lot about each other. And I think we've kind of revealed certain things on air, certain things while we were recording this that the other person didn't always know kind of thing. So it's kind of like a way of, it's kind of like a therapy session.
It has been like that. It has been like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's made it really fun because on the one hand, it's like we're talking to people and giving them advice based on the experiences that we've had. But on the other hand, we're also learning more about each other, and we're also kind of solidifying our relationship in the process. So it's been really beneficial.
It's been fun, guys.
So that's it, guys. You've heard everything that we have to say about communication in relationships, and as part of our discussion, we've spoken about the challenges that we've had. We've spoken about why we think communication is so important. We've also delved into some of the tips and things that we do to enhance our communication in our relationships. So we really hope you got something out of that. With it being our last episode of the season, we just wanted to say thank you for actually taking the time to listen to us. We did not always feel like we had anything of value to add, but we just took the chance and decided to just go ahead and start the podcast. And 12 episodes later, we're finishing our first season and we're super, super proud. So thank you for listening to us. We will be back after the Easter break, and we look forward to talking to you about so many new topics. It's just so many other things that we want to touch on about relationships and in marriage. So definitely tune in for the next season. Don't forget to email us any of your questions, comments, or dilemmas at itt.thepodcast@gmail.com. Or send us a DM on Instagram at ITT Podcast, or one word. Thank you for hanging out with us, and we'll speak to you on the next one.
Bye.